Knocking on wood for the water mains.
We don't need more of those.
Ryan Cop.
Okay, it's 7:01. If we would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start off with the minutes from last meeting.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Dean seconded. All's in favor, raise your right hand.
I'm gonna abstain.
Huh?
I'll abstain.
Okay. So we have 3 approves and 1 abstain. Huh?
You know she's not here.
Yeah, make a note, Vicky Sarazan isn't here. I did say 3 approve, 1 abstain, right?
You did.
Okay. Payables?
When you abstain, you write on here? Abstain, or you
Yeah,
just?
I'll write on
The warrants over 500 are Baker Tilly for $19,576.25. Boyce Forms for $758.48. CNI Fiber, $940.80. Dozer Works for $4,375. Elon Financial Services, $1,396.97. Indiana Michigan Power for $3,888.08. JP Landscaping for $655. Utility Supply for $45,304.98. Verizon Wireless, $563.45. Wex Bank for $581.41. Waste Management Corporation for $10,465.74. The other items on here that are over 500, such as Nationwide, anything that's payroll related, I did not read out. Those are payroll.
Make a motion to pay the warrants.
Second.
I think John Graber got the second. All's in favor, raise your right hand. That's everybody present. Under old business, you had clerk treasurer salary.
Yeah, you can just skip that.
You got a little bit.
Yeah, leave it.
Okay, thank you all for coming. I presume most of you are here because of the letter you received in the mail about annexation. So I'm just gonna start by saying, the reason why we're initiating this annexation is, for one, we have a new housing addition coming in. You probably know that it's coming in over there. And also, a lot of the services we provide, we also provide out there as well, yet we don't always receive the tax revenue for services like that. And extending water services and sewer services out there costs, additional costs as well. You probably already know that if you're in the city limits, your water bill is a little bit less. I understand that trash pickup, it changes as well if you're inside the city limits as opposed to outside. I think Republic serves a lot of you out there, if I'm not mistaken. I imagine you probably have a lot of questions regarding tax revenue and timelines and, what happens if you become a resident of the city. A lot of things, a good thing is you have voting rights, so if you're mad at me right now, you can vote me out of office right now. You'll have a position to vote, city council or policies that we make here that affect a lot of you, but you don't have a vote for something like that, you know, so. And I think living so close to the city where your county, your place where you can go to voice your opinion or objections to policies where you live, you have to go downtown as opposed to coming to City Hall to voice your opinion on things like that, so. There's a lot of you here. I think I'm gonna, I'd like to open the floor up. Actually, I'm gonna introduce a couple people before I do that. I have brought in, I'm sorry, first name Brandon?
Yep.
Brandon from Baker Tilly. He did a fiscal study on annexation, which is required by law. We have to actually map out the area we plan on annexing and have a study done so that we can account for revenue and things like that. So I brought him in. He could answer questions about tax revenue and other potential financial items. And I also brought our city attorney in, who can answer other questions as well as far as timelines and policy and procedure for annexation. So that was a very short Cliff Notes version of what we're talking about today. So I'd like to open the floor. I'm sure all of you, who has questions? Who wants to ask questions? Okay. So I'm sure some of you are just here to listen. Some of you are probably here to ask questions, or all of you can ask questions if you want. So I'm going to just call on anybody that raises their hand to ask questions, and we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
You just ask?
Yep. If you could state your name.
Oh, my name's Tom Baines.
And you live,
I live at 5207 North State Road 101.
okay?
Just what is being annexed? Kind of describe it to us.
Okay, so the annexation area it goes all the way up to the drain, okay? So,
The marsh ditch.
yes, the Mars ditch. So from the current city limits now, all the way up to the ditch, both sides of 101.
Okay.
So right there.
Including the commercial retail part of the new addition.
Yes, that is part, that entire property, so the commercials, the section that he's going to have as commercial is part of his annexation, the person that's doing that development out there, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that whole property there, plus the remaining parts of Woodburn Missionary Church that is not inside the city, that is also being annexed in as well.
And Ag Plus too, right?
And Ag Plus, yes, Ag Plus.
What are you thinking?
The timeline, so Kevin, you could probably answer a better timeline than that when we get all this.
The timeline depends on whether it's a voluntary, they kind of do it in three different terms. A super voluntary, if everybody joins in and signs a petition, it's relatively quick, 90, 120 day period. If it's what they just call a voluntary, which is more than a certain number of the people, but not 100%, then there's a little bit longer time frame. And then there's involuntary, where if you don't have either 100% or the next percentage level, it's an even longer period. Okay, so it's kind of hard to narrow that down.
It sounds like it's not 2 years though.
No.
Okay, all
but-
right, that's fine.
But and the process for each one of those three different processes, if it's super voluntary, everybody signs, a lot of the hearings and the meetings are taken out because, you know, the state would, the statute would say, why are we having all these public hearings if everybody is going to sign wanting to come into the city, versus on the other end of the spectrum, people don't wanna come in, you know, then you have up to 6 public hearings, you know, with information and public notices, mail notices, paper notices, to make sure everybody has an opportunity to say their piece. So, you look at two different spectrums, but it's hard to point down what the time frame is without really knowing, you know, who's willing to voluntarily sign up
That's
to
good.
come in, so.
Thank you.
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
I'm Randy McMahon, 5206 North State Road.
Yes.
Just a question. I had like a two-part thing. We're kind of concerned about the speed limit. We're actually concerned about it now, but
Yeah.
I think it's 45, correct?
Which means 60.
Which they're doing 60, so if we try to, the trucks and stuff, would that be, fall in line with what's in town?
Actually, it could very well be that, because right now, NDOT determines the speed limit out there.
Oh,
They take,
Oh.
you know, anything outside the speed limit, anything outside the city limits, that's NDOT right there.
do you have any influence on that at all?
Nothing outside the city
No.
limits, no.
But once it's
We
in
can
the city, you will.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Oh, I
yeah,
tried
I mean-
them, don't waste your time.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah,
yeah, inside the city, like,
and I guess the only other thing that that would be a good thing.
Unless it's a state
And-
road.
And like you said, I think
Well,
I've
even
heard
in
before
Woodburn,
that the water rates and the garbage rates
You
will
can't
go down,
change
so
the speed limit on a
that'll
Say it.
absorb some of the, tax, maybe.
I'm sorry, the first part of the last thing you said, I didn't hear you.
The tax rate,
You can push your-
the water sewer is probably gonna be lower, at a lower rate than what we're
You
paying
have
now.
the ability to-
The water
to
rate
set
will
it
be a
on
lower
any
rate.
road.
Yep.
25%, right?
Yeah, right now, the outside the city is 25% higher than inside the city for just water. Sewer is the same either way.
Okay, and the only other thing I have is, what would be some potential benefits as far as, I don't know, street lights or sidewalk? I mean, I know that'd be down the road, but,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I don't have any projects like that on
Okay.
101 in mind right now.
okay.
But,
Well,
yes,
we
we will-
walk and ride a lot, so, you know, getting into town on a bicycle, you gotta,
Yeah, we would have more control of doing things like that, yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, yes. Before we go any further, I'll get your question. So beginning, January 1st, 2025, Indiana state law requires all public meetings to be recorded and live streamed. We're a step ahead of that. We are currently live streaming. You're all on YouTube right now. Just thought I'd share that before, he reminded me, I thought I'd share that before we go any further. Yes, sir.
Steve Reinhardt, 5136, next to these guys. The sidewalk they were talking about, are they planning on building a sidewalk in the new part that they're building, a new addition along the street there?
In the addition, I hadn't talked to them about along the street there, but we're currently planning on a trail inside there.
Something for them, you know, all they gotta do is just cross the road without getting hit by a semi
Yeah, yeah.
and walking, yeah.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we don't have a definite plan for sidewalks there at this time, but that is, we have more control to do things like that as well,
Yeah, as well as,
so.
I forget the term, you get a lot of jake braking coming from the truck
Yeah.
stop up there, especially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 o'clock in the morning,
right in front of our house.
all night.
They will have no control over that.
The city won't?
No, that's a NDOT safety issue. They won't
Yeah.
they won't let the city post anything because it's a state highway.
If it's
We-
inside the city limits, they won't?
We try to get it, done in here, and they won't do it.
Why do I see in other cities where they have state highways run through where there's no jake breaking?
Those signs carry no pull.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Those signs carry no weight.
We try to get them to post them, they won't post them.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We can't put signs on the state highway.
Maybe possibly the city posted them themselves.
Probably, but
What-
yeah,
what
if
you-
you put
what you're
signs up, they
referring
take
to,
them down.
Maybe? Yes,
So Joe, in
Brian.
the original, planning commission hearing that we attended, we understood them to say that until the annexation is complete, they didn't wanna see any building going on. Is that still
I believe they were referring to the industrial park
No, sir.
annexation.
They were talking about, in the planning hearing, they were talking about the split where the township and the city line currently goes through
Mhm.
the addition.
Mhm.
And I don't know that that's in effect, but I guess that'd be a question I would have.
I don't know about any particular meeting, I wasn't in that meeting, but, we want to have the annexation done before any of the houses get built, yes.
And then the second thing is, I believe Indiana pays, so for '24, we paid for '23, do we not?
Say that again?
So taxes are paid a year behind. So when the annexation is complete, does that start the timeline for the tax change to go from the city or from the township that we're currently under to the city?
I'm gonna ask Bryce if he can.
Brandon.
Or Brandon, I'm sorry.
Either
Here I
way,
go.
I can answer it. So yes, since it's in arrears, you know, just as an example, if the annexation were to be done by the end of this year, it would affect taxes 2025 payable 2026. So assuming it is done by the end of the year, you wouldn't actually see a tax impact until your bills in '26.
For the year 2025.
Yes, yeah, because everything's a year lag.
So if this only goes down so far, you guys have plans for enhancing Love's Truck Stop and the industrial park, is that what they call it?
Yes, our intention is to go up to 24 eventually. And right after this annexation, my plan is to move on to that annexation. Yep.
What else is gonna impact us financially? You know, trash pickup, well, that's minor, but taxes, city taxes,
Well, I know this because of another resident came in here,
Yeah.
who lives just north of you, closer to Love's. And she said her, trash bill with Republic is upwards of $50-some right now.
a month.
Maybe a few dollars more. Waste management here is gonna be like 23 in the next 2 years, so
Yeah.
that's a big one.
I think every 3 months they raise your trash rate, or every 2 months they raise your trash rate.
Every 3 months.
Some
We're
people
on
are
a-
paying $200.
We're on a 3-year contract, so we just started this year, I think, if you remember, we just started this year. And it goes up a couple cents every year for the next 3 years, and then we do a new contract.
How else financially is this gonna impact us? I mean, we got the city tax,
Mhm.
water, go down, trash, what am I missing?
We don't have city tax, it's county tax.
It's county tax, we already pay
Your
county.
tax is county, yes.
It's a
It
different
does
rate.
change though, if I'm correct, the rate changes when we go into city.
Correct.
You can probably evaluate or elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah,
Brandon.
so, right, your tax rate is a district tax rate. It's made up of, for you now, not being in the city, it's the county, school, the library, and the township. After annexation, you'll still be paying those pieces of the tax, but your district rate will now include the city piece as well, which is where the increase in your tax bill comes from.
So a good way to figure your increase would be to take your net assessed value, multiply it times the city tax rate versus what we currently pay in the township, correct?
Correct. You would, the only thing with doing it like that is you wouldn't be accounting for, like, there's a PTRC credit in this area.
But if you have those credits currently on your tax bill, you can assume those credits will stay?
Correct. Yep.
Any additional credits or abatements?
Mm-mm. Not that I'm aware of, no.
Because there's a cap, right? There's a
Correct. So, all of this is, you can't assume that because on, say, your residential property, I assume, your cap is 1% of your gross assessed value. So if you have a $100,000 home, the most you can pay in taxes is $1,000. So you would see an increase up to when you hit that cap.
Thank you.
I did have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the restrictions that we're not currently under that would be imposed, like burning and?
Yeah, it's a broad question. Most of the regulations we have here mirror the county because our last zoning ordinance was basically mirrored what the county had. So, you're testing me right now, cause I'd have to
No, I'm
pull out
just-
my ordinance book and look.
Anybody that has trees knows that
Right.
there's debris all the time.
Yeah,
Never ends.
yeah,
And we get a pile built up and then we burn them off.
yeah, we have,
That would be the other thing too, they'll get,
yeah, it's another thing, we do leaf pickup. You know, when you have your leaves, you push them, you push them to the road and we come by and pick them up. And, Ryan just loves the thought of picking up more leaves.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
Plus,
but, we do have a nuisance ordinance. It's probably a little bit more stringent than the county, I'm not sure, I'd have to double check. We have, nuisance ordinance as far as trash in your yard or, vehicles with expired tags and things like that. That's the thing I can think of offhand, if anybody else could come up with something, regulation in the city that's different than being in the county.
well, our son they live in Hicksville.
Yeah,
They have restrictions on parking out front of your house. Like you get company, you can't park on the lawn. They have restrictions on, say, travel trailer, which we have one, parking it out in front.
I can tell you that when people have parties here, I have never had anybody complain, or have we ever acted on somebody parking in their yard because of a party. I
They
can't
do
ever
have that.
remember an instance.
They do have that.
Yeah. So, yes.
Thank you you invited the right people to answer extraneous questions.
Yep.
The thing I keep thinking about is the big thing here is gonna be the taxes, I think. And I don't like this whole thing, but I'm not against it. It's not my land, it's gonna happen. But it sounds like it's in our vested interest to try and be a prick about it, to push our tax increase up as far as we can. You know, do you guys, who has the power to say, we'll give you another year if you won't be dicks about it and sign this stuff?
Well, okay, so, let's say you're talking about, you decide not to annex, you don't wanna annex in right now?
No, I don't mind one way or the other, but the longer I make it wait, the longer it is before they increase my taxes. So if I could buy another year, I'll be a prick and buy another year.
Till we change presidents anyway.
Huh? Oh, yeah, well.
Did I say that out
Well,
loud?
the other trouble is all we do is
Well, I can
reassess the
say-
state, but that's.
I believe the study has a timeline to it, has an expiration to it, right? If I'm not mistaken, or can we keep that for a long time?
Well, it's gotta be still relevant, I mean,
right.
Yeah,
I don't know what a long time is, but
right,
the study's based on everybody in the area. So if the area changes a little bit, we'd have to tweak it a little bit, and I think if we roll into another tax year, I think, Baker Tilly's probably gonna say we need to update it.
Yeah.
For the most recent updated information, so. I think it's still good if we move forward
yes,
in a relatively short period of time, yes.
yes. I fully intend to move forward with this one right now.
But you can have an offset with your water bill and your garbage bill. Garbage bill alone should go down at least $300 a year, so,
You know,
It isn't even gonna be close though.
you think?
Well, I don't know. We have the same garbage that the city has, and ours, it's $38 a month, so that'll be a little cheaper. But,
Water goes down to
you know, I do have one more thing. Isn't there a simple equation how we can calculate how much more our tax will be?
Yes, sir.
I mean,
The spreadsheet, so I created this fiscal plan, which is just like a typical document, but I have work papers that I use to create the document for them, which list every parcel number and property owner.
well, you already know.
And I could, it would be up to the mayor, but
Oh,
I could provide you with a tax impact schedule
Mhm.
that shows that increased taxes for each property.
Mhm.
And then I also would have the ability, with further discussion with you or whomever, to show the offset with, the water bill and the trash bill, to kind of show an overall estimated
That's
impact.
the
that
algebra
would be
we're looking
nice.
for.
That would be
Yeah,
nice.
that would be great if we could do that. As far as taxes go, we have a police department that, they respond a lot outside the city. That's on the bill of the Woodburn taxpayer, not you. So, increase in taxes, you're already getting a service, but you're not paying taxes for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It would break my heart if you continued that.
Well, I know, but, we don't have to, we can just make the county come out, you know.
So Joe, just sharing with the group, I just ran simple calculations, taking the difference in the tax rates between the city of Woodburn and Maumee Township.
Yeah.
And my taxes will increase a little over $1,200 a year.
And what's your total assessed value of all your properties?
Is that for both of them or just for the house?
For both of your properties?
I don't have my papers with me, but,
Is that, I mean, is the value of all your properties
Of
worth
the two
about the same as the
properties.
typical home, or is it
of
worth
the two
more?
properties, it's of my home and of the storage building I have across the street,
Okay, okay.
those two areas,
The total is going up 1,200?
a little over 1,200.
That's not, does that take out the trash and the water? That-
So,
the-
that does not, that's just.
So roughly
that's
gonna
just
be
the
about
building.
$800 more annually?
Pardon?
Just guessing about $800 more annually, trying to get the water and trash difference maybe? Cause your trash is what? I mean, you pay a month in trash, that's gonna go to 22.
They pay $550 a month, probably about $600 a year.
Yeah.
So if it goes up 1,200, which I'm assuming that your guys' properties are probably more than what a single house is, your two combined. So $1,200 for them probably goes down less than that, and then we take with the water and the trash, it's $600 off the top of that, so a $600 increase for your assessed property that's valued is probably more than them.
We don't pay for trash at our storage building, so you have to add that back on because
I'm saying that your guys' value of your property is probably more than theirs. If you have two, it depends on what size they are, you'd assume that it's probably more.
What he's saying is that, yes, you're right, the tax is gonna change, but everybody's situation is gonna be different based on the value of the property.
Right.
So it's not always gonna be 1,200, might be a lot less than that depending on the value.
So is there any consideration given?
Is some of the property ag, zoned, or used ag, or assessed ag, any of the property?
I believe I don't know 100% for sure, but I think all the homeowners are in residential.
Okay.
I'm not
The
100%
planning
sure.
commission made me rezone my storage building. They
Say
made
again?
me rezone it to commercial C1.
County did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then when I met with the building commissioner, he said, why didn't you just get a variance? I said, that's what I asked for, but he said I couldn't do that.
See, we're more open with variances than Woodburn, I'm telling you.
So could we
We've
get
given a lot of
variance-
them.
Could we get a variance on my storage building and not pay the full sewer? I mean, we pay the minimal water rate there to, what, 200 gallon at the most a month? And yet we pay the full sewer rate, we both pay the minimum water rate?
You don't get any of that from Woodburn outside the city, I'm sorry.
No,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
you pay the minimum sewer rate too.
Oh, the minimum sewer rate, yeah.
And now we're gonna pay tax on, or not gonna pay tax, but now we're gonna pay trash pickup for a storage facility that I don't generate trash. I put it in my own personal trash.
No, I don't think you have to.
Yeah, yeah,
You wouldn't get
don't
charged for
have
it
to.
though.
You don't get charged for it.
Yeah, we
You know?
won't.
No, you just won't get,
No.
you just won't be on.
Only the people that get the service get charged for it, yeah,
Okay, that's good to know.
so.
No commercial lot in the city gets trash.
What's the tax rate on industrial?
What's the tax rate on industrial?
You mean like the cap?
No. Like, I guess.
The industrial is 3% of your gross assessed value.
Okay. Brian, your industrial one out over there, or I-2 actually, industrial 2, that's what they've got you as.
Is that what it's shown on the map?
That's what it shows on the map. So,
Because I believe my commercial, my paperwork, I believe shows C1.
well, the recorder's office has you as industrial 2, which
Okay.
they may have either not updated it yet, but that's been up long enough, it should have been updated by now.
Yeah, the reason I asked if there was any ag, I mean, the capital, or the fiscal plan shows that there is some ag in here. And my understanding is if you're assessed, not zoned, but assessed as ag property, you won't pay any change your use from ag. So as long as they're ag assessed, that,
Yeah.
that there won't be any increase.
There are 6 properties in the annexation area that, so the requirement is that it has to be 100% agricultural land, the assessment has to be. And if it is, then it's considered municipal tax exempt, which means even after annexation, you're still gonna be paying that same unincorporated rate. So there's 6 properties that regardless of what happens, based off of the current assessment, there will be 0 tax impact.
It'd be 0 tax impact, but they will get the benefit of the other things they're talking about, the trash, the water rates,
I'm
things like
assuming
that.
it's all
So-
of them on the east side of the road.
So those 6 properties actually would pay no additional tax, but get the additional benefits.
100%.
Savings,
Inside the
that's
city,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just wanna make that,
Yep.
that was the reason for asking earlier about the ag.
Okay, thank you.
So an industrial rate's gonna be higher than a residential rate, right? To start with?
I would think so, yeah.
So,
Gentleman down here.
The rate is actually the same. What's different is the cap. So residential homes get a 1% cap. Like I said earlier, a $100,000 home, the cap would be $1,000 tax bill.
Okay.
If you're an ag property, which again, this wouldn't really apply, but that's 2% cap, so it'd be, if it was $100,000, it would be a $2,000 cap. And then for the commercial, industrial type properties, that's a 3% cap, so a $100,000 value would be a cap of $3,000 tax bill. Yeah, the rates don't actually, the tax rates don't change, it's the max that you can be charged that changes.
So right now, residential rate, we're pricing that the same as an industrial,
Correct.
right now.
Yeah,
Well, the cap could change, or would change it potentially.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Chris Potter, 5108.
Yes.
And was there a mention in the very beginning about a commercial piece associated with the subdivision?
I think somebody, somebody asked the question, and I think they were referring to, so, you know where the new housing addition is going? The 2 lots, along 101 is reserved for, they're gonna be zoned commercial. So, he's planning on selling it to a business that might wanna go in there. I don't know if he's got any deals made or anything, I really couldn't tell you, so.
And I think with one of your questions about the things that are restricted, I think you mentioned to me that there's like no big animals, livestock.
Agricultural livestock. Alicia's pigs would be an exception as their pets, and they're not raised as livestock. She couldn't replace them, but it'd be a grandfather type thing on something like that, but yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Dave Reichart, representing Ag Plus, the fertilizer property. We're not opposed to the assessment, and we've talked to you about this. Our biggest concern is with having propane and anhydrous ammonia there, is that we don't, if the law changes, we understand we gotta accept the law, but, you know, a state law or EPA or one of those things. But we just wanna make sure that we don't have a restriction that takes those opportunities away from us, because we use the propane to serve homes in the community. The anhydrous ammonia serves the farmers in the community. It is the cheapest source of nitrogen for farmers to use, and we just don't wanna see anything that would cause us an issue. If the law changes, we'll abide with the law, but we don't wanna see the city do something that restricts us going forward in those areas. So we'd like something in writing saying that, you know, if the law changes, we'll abide by the law, that's not our issue. But if it doesn't, we don't want the city to make some ruling that restricts us going forward.
Right. Well, you're right, we don't have any restrictions other than what Allen County Department of Environmental Management or, the state version of that has. And And this council doesn't plan on making any regulations like that, but I can't speak for future councils, so, you know.
That's why we
So,
like
right.
something in writing,
Right.
because we know it's gonna change. I mean, let's be honest, times go on and people are gonna quit and other people are gonna run and what have you, so we just like something that we could get that would say that as long as we're abiding by the law, we're not gonna be restricted by what we have to do there. That's a bigger thing to us, cause
Right.
it's a big part of the business we do there,
Yeah.
in both cases,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I don't see that happening, but I have to say that I can't speak for future councils, you know, 6 years down the road, if another council wanted to do something different. And I don't know if, I haven't looked into this, I don't know if a city can be more restrictive than the state on these things, I really don't know. Haven't looked into that.
That's our only concern. Other
Okay.
than that, we have no issue with the annexation.
Okay. Appreciate that.
So, I'll add that our industrial zoning is an exact mirror of the county's industrial zoning that you currently reside under. That would be the way, like, you're currently protected because your anhydrous is in I2 and your propane's sitting in I3. So, you're protected by how the zoning is written right now. Is it a permitted use, which means nobody can say, no, you can't have it. And as long as that zoning remains the same inside the city, it would also remain a protected business practice there. If at some point in the future, Ag Plus petition to rezone, I don't see that happening. Why would they shoot themselves in the foot? But realistically, that zoning would have to change in order for that no longer to become a protected
And that
business
zoning
practice.
currently is what again?
Your anhydrous on the north side of the property is in an industrial 2. And your propane storage happens to sit just south of the line, and that is in an industrial 3, which happens to be the heaviest industrial zoning that there is, so.
And even if it changed, wouldn't it be then a non-conforming permitted use?
It would have to remain a non-conforming permitted use,
That
so.
you would be allowed to continue to be able to do it until you stopped or you changed, but as long as you continue to do it because it was permitted when you started it, it would be allowed to continue. It would take, let's say you had a building that was, permitted, and then the zoning changed and the building's not permitted. As long as that building stays, you can use it and use it for its purpose. If the building burnt down and you tried to rebuild it, then you'd have to rebuild it in conformity. So, I don't know, it's kinda hard to say with a business, but if you changed your, from, what'd you say, ammonia?
Ammonia and propane.
Okay,
Propane.
yeah, and you decided to go to maybe some different type of chemical, that may cause
And that
a trigger.
We have no
of
idea what's gonna happen
change,
in
but
the
as
future,
long-
I mean.
yeah, but as long as-
I've been in the business 50 years, and for 50 years, they said anhydrous would discontinue, and it's still going on, so,
So generally, as a non-conforming permitted use, even if the zoning changed as a non-conforming permitted use, as long as you kept doing the business as you were currently doing, there's nothing that can stop you from doing that.
Okay. And again, we realize, I mean, we're under IDEM rules for the anhydrous,
Yeah.
and actually fire marshal falls into the propane for the most part, so I mean, we understand we have to obey the laws, that's not a question here.
And I can't answer for sure, I'd have to look into it, but generally, when you're getting into things like that, IDEM has usually, jurisdiction, and they don't allow a city or a town to change those rules.
And we have annual inspections and all this.
It's kinda like the same thing with the speed limit on a state road. If the state road, the state wants to set the speed limit, even though that state road goes right through the middle of Woodburn, the state says, we're in charge of that, not you. And I would think it'd be the same when you're getting into chemicals like that. I can't assure you that, sitting here.
Which actually, you just kinda corrected me then, because I told them before that we would have control of the speed limit, in the city, cause we have control on Main Street and that's 101.
The state set that though.
Okay.
You got, I'm assuming
We have
back
no
in the
pull
day
with the
they
state though
asked to
to
have it
set it.
lowered it down.
You can ask the
Ask,
state,
yeah.
but they
No,
set
no
it,
poll.
and then the same thing with when you write a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
I believe your marshal probably, he needs to write it as a state statute violation on
Yep.
the state road.
Yep.
On the city streets, he can write it as an ordinance violation if there's a speed limit ordinance, but
It would probably just take a phone call from me
that,
to say, hey, the part inside the city, I want the speed limit, I imagine.
again, they gotta, I mean, they have their traffic studies
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you may take a phone call, but you know how the state works.
Yeah, I do.
They'll
So
set up a committee.
whoever asked about the speed limit, did you hear that? I wanna correct that, cause I didn't, I think I gave you a little bit of misinformation. I have to actually ask the state to lower it, and it's their decision ultimately, but more
Well,
than
and
90%
then
are gonna
another
follow.
reason that I brought that up was, there's gonna be a lot of traffic in and out of that addition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, potentially, that's a very dangerous situation if it would help it quite a bit if the speed limit was down to
Yeah.
35.
And that would be an argument to bring, that would be an argument for us to bring before the state when we're asking to have that section of 101 restudied for the speed limit, say, hey, there's a housing addition entrance here, there's a commercial district here that is now entering from the other side of the road from the industrial park. You need to come out and take another look at this. It's just like when we got them to lower it from 55 to 45 out there. They came out, they did their study, and they said, okay, we agree. We had originally, when that one happened back in 2017, we asked for 35, and they came back and said, we can't do that, but we can do 45. Well, introducing this group of houses there is a good argument to ask them to bring it down, so.
I know the state's probably going to, I'm sure they have requirements for decel lanes and all that too, for, if you just mentioned that, I apologize, but, yeah, for all that.
Yeah, they start decelerating when they get to our houses though.
Yeah.
So last question for me.
Yes, yes.
And once you do this tax impact study, will you share that information with us automatically? How will we be notified that it's available?
Yeah, if you want the information, approximately how long do you think it would take to get that information, Brandon? Do you think?
Either end of this week or sometime next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I just need to clean it up and make it look nice for you guys, really.
Right.
That's what it is.
Okay,
And discuss with you or whomever the utility impact, so,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it wouldn't take long.
So we could have it here in the city, available for anybody to take
Sure.
copies.
That'd be great.
So,
So,
approximately 2-3 weeks.
so Brandon, would you also be able to calculate, I'm gonna go to the county commissioners and see about rezoning my storage building. They forced me to rezone it. It was R1.
Mhm.
And there's a huge tax difference between R1 and Dan says it's I1, I thought it was C1. Or I2, what did you say, Dan? I2. I'm gonna go to the commissioners and see if I can get that changed.
Absolutely.
So the address on my storage building
Yeah.
is 5324.
Are you the owner?
Yeah.
What's the last name?
Hefner.
Hefner?
Hoeppner. Brian.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's the address?
5324.
5324, okay.
Thank you.
Will there be a petition that goes around, or do we need to generate that?
I have a petition right here,
Okay.
and I have a pen too.
See, the thing is, I don't know if people understood me before, because my first inclination is to sign it, let's get this done and get it over with. But again, if I don't sign it, and enough of us don't sign it, then we gotta start all the meetings, and we might get into the next year and save us a year's worth of extra real estate taxes. What's our incentive not to slow the process? Don't say be a nice guy, cause you'd be talking to the wrong guy.
You know, I really don't have an incentive for you for that. I really don't have an incentive. The only incentive is the advantage of being in the city or not the city, or disadvantage of being in the city or not the city. That's for your decision to make. If we have to keep changing it, carving it out, it's gonna keep costing the city more money, I know that, because it's our studies that we're doing. We're not charging, we're not adding a fee to everybody for all these studies that we're having done. It's all on the city of Woodburn residents,
So the taxes are in the arrears, so there'd be delay for a year. But what about the garbage and water? When does that affect it?
Yeah, the garbage and water, because that's a company that does that, so
That'd be a immediate.
that price is set for,
Yeah.
so.
Well, no, I mean, when would they get the advantage of that? Right away?
As soon as they're in the city, we call them up and tell them,
So your taxes
Hey.
would wait a year,
yeah,
you'd get the advantage of the garbage and the water benefit.
yeah,
That's the incentive.
yeah.
You guys would take care of the switch over on the garbage?
Yeah, we'll call Waste Management, you call Republic.
No, I'm with Waste Management.
Oh, you are, okay, yeah. Yeah, we have Waste Management.
Well, I switched to Waste Management, the same reason the city did, because it got up in the.
Do they charge you, the same rate as what they charge, what do they charge you? Waste Management?
Waste Management?
Yeah.
Or, it's right now, it's 115 for 3 months.
Oh, okay, well, that's
But
significant. yeah.
Republic,
It's 150 for 3 months.
well, and
150.
the odd thing about that is Steve and I had a conversation one day, he had
Same
2
thing, 50 a
cans
month.
I mean, you go 22 a month.
with Republic. My neighbor had
over
2
half.
cans, he was paying less than I was with 1 can, so that just instantly fired me up, so I called him up, and, oh, well, we can lower it, I just.
You didn't tell them I had 2 cans.
Huh?
You didn't tell them I had 2 cans, did you?
No, I didn't. Well, I did, but I
He
didn't say
said
who it was.
neighbor.
I didn't say who it was.
Good neighbor. Joe, you mentioned something about earlier when you called a little bit one night when I was in the middle of a degree.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about we get a map of the layout of the new addition going in.
Yeah,
I don't know what you call it. What do you call it?
Bonnie Meadows.
Yeah. If you have one of those tonight, I'd like to take them with me.
Yep, I don't have a copy right here, I have a PDF in my computer,
Okay.
so I can print one for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this thing's still awake, I heard it.
Are you working on that, Brian?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have the actual small copy, that mine might be
I can always stop. by.
full blown.
Well, you're talking on map of the addition.
The plot of the new one.
Yeah, well, they've changed it since we went to the meeting.
Yeah, I can give you the most current map that I have.
Yeah.
It has changed a little bit, yeah, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Anybody have any other questions? No? Well, thank you for coming, I appreciate it. The whole intention of this was to
Thanks for having us.
make an open forum so you guys could get more information about it.
Yeah, way back. Right.
Thank you.
Something like that.
That's not the most.
I might have that, have you?
Let me see.
Big old file.
Yeah, that's actually nice. If you wanna see me stuff.
Yeah, you could say something.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, I can catch up real quick. Okay. If you got it printed already, I'll just give it to them.
It is. A couple phone calls, but yeah.
Ditch is still there.
You already have it?
Drove by and I saw that the other day. I make it a point to look when I go by. I looked and I saw it. So,
Yeah, maybe you don't wanna hear about it.
unfortunately,
I mean, I could, but.
fortunately, it's in dot.
Nope.
They're,
For my benefit.
the whole NDOT does
Better
for them in
lean
the
on
ditch.
somebody.
Yeah, I got it.
Hey, Mayor.
Yeah, filled up
Do
with
you
water like a
want me
lake.
to stick around to
And then
chat
they
after?
bubbled it out.
Are you guys talking anything else annexation? I just don't wanna necessarily charge you for
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
I'm not useful.
Anybody have any other questions for Brandon?
And it's lovely.
Want to discuss it
It's
before?
supposed to drain that way.
And then should I just reach out directly to you to discuss?
What's that?
Should I reach out directly to you to
Thanks for coming.
discuss the tax impact schedule and the utility bill impact
Yeah, just send me a follow-up email. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, I'll send you an email, maybe we can get a quick call set up to discuss it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. And I can get, yeah, that way I can get copies out to them.
Well, that way
Absolutely.
you know, explain it to them too, what it's saying. You'll probably talk to him about, make sure, they're gonna have questions.
Yeah, so, yeah, might be a follow-up meeting ahead that you come to.
Okay,
We can talk
yeah,
about that.
whatever you need to do.
All right.
Alright,
Wait,
Thank you for coming.
What
Yeah.
about, the thing that we were talking about earlier, the levy and that, and petitioning, maybe he, I think he probably knows
Thank you for
about
bringing that
that.
up.
The look back thing?
So,
Yes.
we wanna do a, once most of the houses get built, we wanna do, I think you called it a look back.
Yeah, so petition the state for a levy adjustment with a 3-year look back.
so are you talking the 3-year growth appeal?
Yes.
That you do as part of the budget process?
Yes, that's what me and Nicole were talking about. So that's different than what you guys were discussing.
It turns out it's pretty much exactly the same thing.
Okay,
I
we're
talked
good.
I talked to Lindsay, got some information for me. Lindsay Hammond. I saw her yesterday and she's like, I got some information for you.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic.
that turns out to be something that any budget process can initiate that look back.
Yeah,
We are
for the
doing-
growth.
Yes,
Have you done that for this?
we're gonna
budget
do that.
year?
No.
We're gonna do that.
You're going, yeah, you guys have added about 60, at minimum, at least 60 homes.
That's
This
what,
ye-
when
just
we were
this
talking
year.
about it here, you guys made it sound like a completely different process than
Yeah.
what she told me it
Well,
was.
it was originally described to me as a completely different process.
Okay.
So, just for your information, there's the 3-year growth appeal, which is part of the budget process, and you have to include it on your Form 3 advertisement
Yes,
and all
we're
of
doing
that. Okay, and then there's an annexation adjustment, which is separate from that, but that's an automatic annexation adjustment.
Okay.
There's
Cool.
not, that would show up, are you the clerk treasurer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That would show up on your 1782 notice. There's a page toward the back that has what your levy starts as, and a lot of times there's no adjustments, but if you've recently done an annexation, it would show up there, an adjustment for the annexation. Now, you won't see, if you do the annexation this year, you wouldn't see that for a year or two,
Okay, yeah,
but that's automatic. It's not something you have to apply for or
okay.
anything.
You guys did one last year too, though, right, for the other edition? That's already annexed, that was annexed last year, right, or
Yeah,
this year?
yeah, everything that's, except for the new one, is all annexed in.
Alright, did that hit the budget, did that hit this
1782.
year's, or was it on last year's? When was that annexed in?
That's been a couple of years.
As I said, it's more than a year ago.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
already been added in then?
Phase
It
1
automatically
over there
came in?
was
I would have to see your
2.5
It's
1782.
right here.
to
Hold
answer
on.
for sure.
3 for
Where's
the
it at in the last
homestead
page?
was
It's toward the back of the
probably the same
1782
time frame.
notice.
You wanna, I gotta pull
Well,
up.
that was already in the city, so I did that wrong.
The one that,
But
Oh,
phase
not that
2
page.
back there is probably only a year old.
One more.
I was
No,
thinking of the
further
one
down,
that's-
sorry.
further down,
was it
okay, that's the
Granite
last
Ridge?
page.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah,
going.
phase 2 for that one's
It
probably
would be
only a
here,
year old.
so you see how this is 259, 369,
Mhm.
and then you look down here and this is a
I
little
owe you some
higher. You
clarification
got
on the
this
contract,
annexation
and I'll get
factor
that.
here.
Okay.
That was applied, which it,
Not a lot.
it was a tiny
It's a
amount.
point zero
I'll reply to
zero
that email
four
at
eight
some point
percent.
here
Well,
directly.
It increased your levy by
But
like
that
$1,600.
Sitting on the
There
phone
wasn't
today.
any homes in there, was that taxes from the new
I
homes?
brought it with me just in case.
The increase?
Yeah,
It was just
That would be
farmland.
based
Okay.
off, that would be
Just
based
figure it
off
out.
of the value of the property when you did the annexation.
Yeah, cause it was all farmland.
So there's
Yeah,
no
3
there.
houses.
Right,
Yeah.
so when you do an annexation and there ends up being a lot of growth,
Yeah,
that serves to help you qualify for a 3-year growth appeal.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're doing that
and if you
on
need,
this budget.
funny enough, annexation and budgeting is what I do, so if for some reason you have questions about budgeting, you can reach out to me for that as well.
Okay.
And we have a template where for every client we have that we do budget work for, we do the calculation for the 3-year growth appeal to see if they qualify.
I'm assuming she already did that. Did she talk to you about any of this already?
Who's working on your budget?
Nicole, her last name's weird.
Oh, it starts with a G.
Yeah.
Okay, I will reach out to her tomorrow and make sure that she has done that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know
she's
we
part
have-
of the Mishawaka team because it's closer to you.
Yeah, Grabowski?
I don't even know how to say it. Nicole G, yeah. Nicole G.
Okay. So yeah, we did get it for that annexation then.
For the farmland.
Yes.
But the residents in there aren't accounted for as far as the new taxes go, I'm assuming.
Well, that's gonna be in the,
Yep, the three,
in the
3 year.
3 year.
Okay, yep.
Cool.
Alright, awesome.
When she was telling me that, and I'm like, I don't know the process of each one, and she's like, no, you can do it right now, and I was like, well, let me check, let me make sure
Yeah.
I'm good with everybody else.
Yeah.
Cause when we had talked about it, you guys had mentioned like a 5 or 10 year period, and I'm like, well, let's not do it if we got these new houses being built, so she kinda scared me a little bit.
Well, when I got my first introduction to the possibility of doing this, the gentleman I talked to had not realized that 14 years ago,
Yeah,
they took the
do things different.
timeline out, or the time frame, only being able to do it once every 5 or 7 years out of there,
Yeah,
so.
for the 3-year growth appeal, if you qualify, you can work it in every year.
What's if you qualify?
So there's
it's
an
pretty-
average based off of the state. The statewide net assessed value average growth, you have to be 2% higher than that for the past 3 years. So for this budget year, it takes into account 21 through 24.
And I think she said that we were at 50%,
Really? Okay.
or 50% higher than what the state average was, or something like that.
Okay, I'd have to look.
So
Well,
it's gonna be a big impact because 3 or 4 years ago, we had 398 homes, single-family homes on record in the city. We're gonna add probably 220 between 2 years ago and 3 years from now,
Okay,
so,
so you would hope at some point throughout
yeah,
these next couple years, you do qualify,
Yeah,
if not this year.
We've added 60 homes just this year
Yeah.
already.
Okay,
So, 380 some, we were at 60, that's a pretty good percentage.
right.
If she didn't talk to you, I think she talked to somebody, cause she told me
It's
that
already
we did
20%.
qualify.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah,
know
I
you have to
mean,
go through
her doing your budget, I'm sure she's accounted for it, I just wanna make sure that she has.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said that, I don't know if it's an application process you have to fill out and then they have to
Yeah.
go through
She
that.
probably would have been there's a whole application process, but you have to include it on your Form 3 notice to
Yep.
taxpayers, otherwise the rest of it's null.
Gotcha, yep.
Yeah.
alright.
I kinda knew what I was talking about, that's alright, that's a win, dude.
Thanks for bringing that up,
Good
that's
day,
some
yeah.
answers, yep.
Perfect time.
Anybody have any other questions for Brad?
I think Dave would like to speak, make a comment.
No, I just asking whether you wanted me to stay for the meeting on here. We are officially going to announce that we're closing the facility at the end of the year of the grain facility. So it will be.
Front and center?
Yeah, so we'll be coming out with an official announcement here on it, and the plan will be to have the facility empty by hopefully the end of March.
Okay.
And then look at what steps we're gonna take depending on the city, what the interest is, otherwise, decide what we're gonna do.
Okay.
If the city has no interest, we probably gonna look at auctioning off part of the facility.
Mhm.
Some of the grain bins, the grain dryer, possibly the flat storage buildings, and we're not sure yet. We just gotta kinda see what the interest is. We have one individual that's expressed some interest in part of it, not all of it. And we've gotta evaluate whether that makes sense.
Right.
So if we were to take the facility, would we get the grain bins too, and the dryer?
The plan right now would be for us to get rid of all that stuff before we turn it over. So the only thing that would be left basically would be the flat storage buildings and the concrete in
And
the
the-
office.
The scale too would go?
The scale will go to Maples facility.
Okay.
So we'll be taking it to Maples and putting it in there. So we have a truck scale and we have semi, because we don't today. And like I said, the office and the concrete basically would stay in the flat storage buildings. So the intent would be to try and sell the vertical grain bins
Mhm.
and the grain dryer. So, I've contacted another firm recently, they're gonna be coming up to look at demolition if that's what we end up doing.
Okay.
So we're having a challenge, and we're not complaining about the police force, but kids are getting in there, and,
Yeah.
we've tried grating up the windows, and they seem to find a way. And we just don't want somebody to get hurt. That's our biggest concern.
Mhm.
Our biggest problem right now is our insurance company will no longer insure the concrete the single concrete silo, they will. The steel, they will, but the main concrete elevator, anything that was built prior to 1950, they will not insure.
And that was built in the 40s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my grandfather helped on the crew that mixed the concrete at hand at the facility, to build that facility, so. But that's our biggest problem. I mean, we can't insure it, something would happen, somebody get hurt, I mean, we're kinda on our own. And we don't wanna be a bad neighbor. I mean, flat out, bottom line is, we don't wanna be a bad neighbor in the community, we don't want it to be an eyesore for the community. But, it's hard to get in and out of because of the way it's all laid out. It would cost us a huge amount of money to try and get it converted into something that would work. And we've built 1 million bushels of additional storage at Edgerton, which is basically what there is here. And here, half of that is flat storage that's very labor intensive. It was fine when I was there as a kid working for $1.35 an hour. Won't work today. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so we wanna be a good neighbor in the community, and that's our goal. We don't want it to be an eyesore for the community. And if there's some way that the city can work with us to demolish the facility, great. And you could have the property afterwards or what, I mean, we're willing to listen, I guess is what we're saying, as far as for us. But we will operate it through this harvest. That will be it.
Well, I'd be happy to speak with you further on that sometime.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff had another meeting tonight, so that's the
Okay.
reason I came tonight, so.
I appreciate you coming.
All right, well, thank you, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brandon? Thank you for coming. Did you come all the way from Indy or Mishawaka?
I live in Kokomo, so
Oh, okay.
in between.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Not so bad, yep.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah, I'll be in touch the next few days.
All right.
Yep,
Have a good one.
thanks.
Not too bad if it wasn't.
Anybody have any questions for Kevin, or Kevin, do you have any comments? Anything?
I just wondering if, I was just gonna ask if you want me to stay, or you have any questions, or?
No. I don't think I have any questions. My questions always come after the meeting. They pop into my head, like that, but,
I think you and I have a phone call.
Yeah.
We need to.
yes.
have, but-
I think I do have a question. As far as the petition that was already created, that was created with the, probably the inexperienced mayor intention that everybody was just gonna sign. How would that change if it's not 100% voluntary?
I mean, I guess it depends if you're going back to trying to do it as just a voluntary versus a involuntary. If it's an involuntary, we don't really need a petition at all.
What does it calculate, consist of voluntary to involuntary?
I believe it's 51% of the property owners or 75% of the assessed value is a voluntary. 100%, is a super voluntary. But I can tell you real quick.
How does it look if you don't get, let's say we have 75% of the assessed value and property, and we get like 6 people don't wanna sign, but we still have all that. Do they have to end up signing something, or?
No, so if it's just a voluntary, it's 51% of the owners in the land or 75% of the total assessed value. So
Okay.
if you hit either one of those,
Okay.
so if you get signatures for either one of those 2 tests, then it's gonna be voluntary.
Okay.
And that still is gonna require, we talked about, these, informational meeting, public hearings. A involuntary requires 6 of those public hearings. A voluntary requires 3.
Okay.
A super voluntary requires none. It requires a public hearing, but not an informational public hearing. So the petition would change. I think the petition I presented, it talks about 100% right in it. So I would just probably maybe dumb it down, but make it less specific, just say that, you know, these are, you know, these people are petitioning to annex, and then we just have to, you know, look at the signatures and determine whether we have 51% of the owners or 75% of the assessed value to go on.
I believe we do, but I didn't calculate that. Is that something we have to have somebody like a Baker Tilly to officially write down, or?
Well, it depends, because remember also when you annex, you have to have contiguity. And so, you know, if you're going to take in everything, you know, let's say you can't get the 75 or 51, but I think you're saying you think you can.
I think we qualify for both of those numbers.
Okay.
Because we have the church property and the entire, property for the addition, and about a third of the homeowners right now.
Then I think the fiscal plan may change a little bit, because when you do a super voluntary, they can't remonstrate against the annexation. So everything's a little simpler because nobody can remonstrate. If it's just voluntary, you still have all the people that didn't sign who can remonstrate, and if they, you know, take it through a court system, then there's test, and I believe instead of having one way to get around the review from the court is you have to have a 1/8 contiguity. You know, the new annex area has to have touch at least 1/8. 1/8 of the new area has to touch the existing boundaries. I think if you can get that up to 25%, then the court looks at it differently. So there's all these tests. It's really hard for me to, I guess, to point out to you, because depending on who you have and what you're trying to avoid, you know, and sometimes even if you can't get the 51 or 75, sometimes it's easier to drop one piece of property out, you know.
But then don't we have to have the fiscal study totally redone to drop a property out?
Well,
and all that?
I mean, you saw how difficult it was for him to add in. You know, we missed those two pieces of property.
Yeah.
And we added them in. It didn't take him long to add that in.
Okay.
I don't think it's too terribly difficult for him to do, but.
No, I didn't mean difficult. I meant, you know, I guess we have to have.
It's hard to plan out an annexation without knowing. I mean, to do a super voluntary. I mean, like I say, they all kind of want to. They all want to see everything before they're willing to sign. It's kind of difficult to do it that way, because you're producing it based on everybody, and then if everybody doesn't sign and you decide to drop one guy out so you can get everybody, well, then all the documents are gonna change.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. I thought you were myself overconfident when you thought.
I was overconfident.
You can get everybody in there, but.
I'll get the majority of my thing though.
Yeah.
Even these guys all here tonight who were kind of complaining, I think once they do the math and numbers, they're like, $600 extra.
And what I would tell you is if you get the majority of them, and let's say there's 2 or 3 that won't sign, and they're on the outside, not, you know, right up against the city, it may be easier and better and quicker to drop those 3 out and move on with the rest, okay? I mean, because when you did the math, I think you did exclude out 2 people. That there are 2 big properties that are excluded out.
On Bull Rapids.
On Bull Rapids,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I think you
I didn't wanna deal with,
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so, again, so let's say there's a 3rd one that's a holdout right next to them. I would probably advise the city, unless there's something really important about that property, at that point, it's probably a more economical and safer approach to drop that property out and move on with everybody than to try to go through a big, long, contentious process just to bring that one.
Even if it creates a peninsula, you know, like
Well,
in between 2 properties.
I don't ever like to have where you create an island,
Yeah.
you know, where there's a county property completely surrounded.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, those do exist. But again, you gotta look at who you can get and who you can't, and kind of a,
Yeah.
it's kind of a game a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're just gonna take the position, we're annexing them in whether they sign or not, you know, and move ahead.
Yeah.
But there is they changed the statute that if you do a involuntary annexation and the taxpayers defeat it, they can get, I believe it's up to $37,000 of their attorney fees paid for by the city.
It doesn't sound like you go that far anyway. Involuntary is if you have under that other threshold, right? You're looking at more of a voluntary where you have that, the two other things, the 75% of the value or 51% of the people. If you get two or three holdouts, that wouldn't be involuntary.
Even a
Well, it
voluntary
depends if they're
one.
really big, like,
Yeah.
let's say, you know, if it's big and they make up, you know, 30%, you know, of the assessed value, but,
So, from a congruity standpoint, it's going to be like 75% of the border will be touching existing city limits.
oh yeah, I don't think he had any problem. with
So that's not a
some of
concern.
them, you
Well, I
know.
even think the property you've got to be more than 75% of property.
So it's based on AV, and that
Yeah.
is assessed as unimproved ground. So Mommy Meadows AV right now is only like $60,000.
Oh, well, that'll be,
So Ag Plus is 400,000, so that helps. And the small piece of church property is, but it still has an assessed value, and it's, what was that? So that's the dollar amount with Mommy Meadows being included isn't as easily beneficial. So like the
Yeah.
church property's 70 or 85,000 and Ag Plus is 400. Mommy Meadows is minimal.
They don't allow you to count in property that is exempt from property taxes.
Oh, they don't? Okay. It's
They could, you know, they're not,
If they don't-
they
if
don't have
they're-
any skin in the game, then they may.
They say, hey, it's worth, yeah, okay.
yeah, so well, you might be rough getting the assessed value then.
Yeah. I don't think the 51% is gonna be as much of a problem, but the AV, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're averaging the houses on the east side of the road are 180,000 apiece, and the ones on the west side of the road are 250 to 300.
So that was gonna be my question. The homes that aren't considered agricultural, why are they considered agricultural? Why are those not residential?
Cause it's bare ground right now.
The 11 homes that were.
Oh, those aren't ag.
I thought you said there were 6 homes that were ag.
Well, they're probably leftover zoning from ag, but they're not considered that way for the purposes of,
They're not assessed, they may be zoned.
they're zoned, but they're not
zoned, but they're
assessed.
not assessed as ag.
There's a difference. You can be,
Okay, I thought there was no tax value in those, they said those won't change tax value, right?
If they're assessed as ag, if they're assessed as ag, then they don't have to pay any city taxes once they're annexed in until they change their way they're using the property, their assessment. So
There's my, why are they assessed that? There are the 6 homes on the east side that used to be owned by, I'm assuming, El Aracle. So those are residential anymore, right?
They wouldn't be assessed as ag, I wouldn't think.
just
What 6 homes are in question? You said there were 6 homes, didn't you?
No, I think he said there were 6 properties.
6 pieces of property.
Oh, I
Not
thought there were 6,
necessarily
I thought you said
homes.
6 homes were tagged.
No, there's 6 parcels of ground that are included in our current plan
Those are all,
that are all bare ground.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd add maybe to the
I
mayor's
misunderstood that.
point about, you know, moving forward is that when you annex property in now, they changed the law that when you annex any property in now, you know, you can't, when you annex it in, it has to be, have to have continuity with the existing limits. When you annex in property after, I think it's 2016, you can't use that property you annexed in for purposes of contiguity in the future.
To the next annexation. That's weird.
Unless it's super voluntary, okay? So if you annex in, I think it's this area, I'm better with maps, I think you're talking, like like this area right here.
Yeah, that's
So
what
if
we're
you
doing
annex
now.
this in, you can't use this line
The new border.
to do here.
But we'll use that, we'll use these.
You'll have to use,
Yeah.
you'll have to use this.
Yep, because
to
we're
get
gonna,
in.
yep.
You see?
Unless the previous one, unless that, what we do now
Unless
is.
this one is super voluntary, that's correct. And so, again,
Oh,
it's,
that's tricky.
and so when you're looking at it, you gotta look at your plans down the road, because if you don't have enough contiguity here
Uh-huh.
to get the next piece, you may wanna leave out this piece, you see,
Yeah.
to be able to keep building out there. That's why,
So is that forever? 50 years from now, it's still the same thing?
well, until they change the law.
Does it change?
Yeah, and that's, my understanding is when the city of Fort Wayne tried to annex, what was it, 6 years ago, and they tried to almost go to DeKalb County.
Yeah.
The reason they did that was just because the Mayor Henry knew that if he only went
So far.
a little bit past Parkview, which is really where he wanted to go,
Yeah,
he would never be able to go any further.
yeah,
And so he was trying to,
right.
because he knew that nobody would voluntarily
Yep.
annex past that. So, again, you kind of, when you're mapping it out, you gotta kind of look at your plan. I don't wanna, put too much bearing on it, because that law may change in 2-3 years. But the track has been, they make it harder for you to annex, not easier to annex.
So if it's voluntary, they can extend out, if it's not non-voluntary?
If it's super voluntary,
Everybody has. to
then
agree.
if it's super voluntary, you can continue to use it regardless of when it's annexed. But other than super voluntary, I believe it has to be, you have to use a pre-2016
Those,
line.
no place is gonna be able to grow very much then. That makes it tough for anybody to grow.
Very, very difficult, yeah.
Do they
I
have-
mean, that's the,
I mean, I get it, but I mean, that's really tough.
Can you clarify, so say you annexed in this one up here and it wasn't super voluntary, the next one would have to be super voluntary, or are you talking about the previous one would have to be?
the next voluntary, the next one after this one.
It has to be super
You only
voluntary.
talk about
If
new
you're,
territory.
unless you can use an existing,
Yeah,
a
Right.
pre-2016 line for your contiguity.
gotcha.
So there's no year limit on that? 5 years or
No.
10, or it's
Nope.
kind of forever then?
It's until, they changed the statute in 2016 or so, they could change it next year again and
Right,
go
that,
back and say you could.
otherwise there's no limit,
Yeah.
so
Mhm. So it,
makes it hard.
so when you're going this way, you have this, you're gonna, and you
Yeah.
can come around this way.
Yep.
But, you'll have you'd have a hard time bringing these two pieces in the future,
Mhm.
because there's nothing touching, you can't take those two in without bringing in a big chunk around the corner.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a strategy,
Super
and just
long.
because somebody wants to come in, if they don't give you any, I guess a strategic or a reason to come in, you may wanna drop them out.
I didn't write down, did you write down the addresses of those two people?
No, but it's all recorded, so.
Okay, yep.
You can go back, you can go on there after it's over and watch the whole thing over again.
Okay.
Is there a camera?
Yes, right up there.
We are ahead of the, I'm sure you're,
Right, so
yeah.
I could probably see the camera.
Say hello, Kevin. Are you aware of the law that takes place next year? We just got ahead of the game, or Kevin got ahead of the game for us. Appreciate that, so.
Are you gonna allow public comment, I believe?
Well, there's a chat on here.
It's on
no,
YouTube, and I think
Yeah.
YouTube has chat, so.
Yeah, I think that's the big discussion now, is whether you can turn the comment section off.
Oh, I
or
don't
not,
know.
And then whether it's legal to turn it off, and
I think, I
Because
think
of open door law and all that.
I think it's a good idea to have someone that, maybe someone that wants to be here and that can't, allows them to have a comment in without, as long as it's not,
So I guess you got someone who's irate on there would be,
or disruptive.
that's
Disruptive,
what
yeah.
they're complaining about, is people use it as,
hazing, it is, yeah.
a bully
Yeah.
platform, and what they would write on the internet, not what they would say in
Here,
person,
yeah.
so.
Well, thank you for coming to our meeting, but if you don't mind, I have one more thing.
Sure.
I wanna just bring up, so, since the chief is here, we talked about, you and I talked about, Woodburn ordinance violation you brought to court and they threw it out, was because we didn't have anybody representing Woodburn. So if we had another one in the future, that went to court, we would call Kevin and have him represent us, right?
Well, my understanding was, I don't, there's no interlocal agreement that I'm
Right.
aware of. And the mayor mentioned New Haven, so I called New Haven as well to verify. They weren't aware of any interlocal agreement with the court system. The courts, Allen County courts would have jurisdiction to hear anything that happened in Allen County. And so they should take it. So I don't know what happened in your particular case. I don't know if you showed up and there was no prosecutor, because the Allen County prosecutor would prosecute any ticket you wrote on a state violation.
I wrote a county ordinance.
So if it was a county ordinance, I'm not sure you have the, you know, how you would write something on a county ordinance.
Cause it was in the city.
It was an animal violation I wrote through a county ordinance that the county police told me I could.
Okay, cause I'm not aware that right or not, but generally, if you write a ticket on a state statute, then the county prosecutor would be the one that enforced that ticket.
Yes.
Because it would be the state of Indiana versus John Doe. If you write a city ordinance violation, it's the city of Woodburn versus John Doe, and now the city attorney has to be the prosecutor. So I didn't know what the situation was there, but if you showed up I have a feeling that you showed up and there was no prosecutor there to prosecute the case, because I wasn't there, and
I wasn't there either.
Okay, and so I'm not sure,
I was never notified of a court date.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure that there was any prosecutor or process, but
Okay.
my understanding is the city of New Haven, they write their ordinance violations, and I talked to the ordinance violation gentleman, he said he knows you, I can't remember his name.
Shane Brook?
Yeah, and he said that he writes it up and he submits them to the court, and they get set for a hearing, and the city attorney shows up and they have a little hearing, and it goes just like any other process. But what I told him was, whether you could call him, when he says he processes it, he files it with the court, I'm not quite sure what he meant by that, but I think whether he files it through small claims or whether it's, where he's filing it, but there's no really written agreement to do it. Now, I've brought up, and most cities and towns have the situation is, when you write a state ticket, and the prosecutor shows up to prosecute it, that's all being paid for. When you write a city, and I show up, I have found before where I show up and you're paying me to enforce a $25 ticket.
Yeah.
It's not always an economical,
Right.
Type deal. And a lot of
It
people.
would be if you charged $12 an hour.
Well, it would be. No.
We'd make 13.
I know.
But we could have, could we have something in there that they would cover that cost?
No, and generally, you can set the penalty higher, but the judge is not likely to do that. I mean, judges are just, if you have some kind of, I don't know what ordinance it is, but they're not gonna fine them
We just have to raise the
hundreds and
fine.
hundreds of dollars,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd have to raise the fine to $500 or something like that.
So do any cities have something where they handle fees through the city themselves?
They have ordinance violations bureaus, and you can set up an ordinance violation bureau, and you can usually run most of your non-moving ordinance violations through the ordinance violations bureau, where they can show up and pay the clerk treasurer.
Yeah.
And only if they don't pay the clerk treasurer do they then go to the court system.
Okay.
Okay.
So how hard is that to set up and run?
tickets you write. I mean, there's a lot of places we represent where, you know, cause everybody wants to write a town speeding ticket or a city speeding ticket versus a state speeding ticket, because the money on a city speeding ticket mostly comes back to the city.
Yeah.
But we look at it a lot of times and we see how many tickets they write. You can't set your speed limit, you can't set the speed limit on a city street the same as what the state speed limit is. It has to be different, okay? Well, so if you set a different speed limit on your city streets, you have to then post signs to enforce it. And what we found is by the time you buy the signs and replace them every couple of years, because apparently signs wear out, you replace them, you don't ever collect as much money back to make it worth it. Yeah, and it's actually probably cheaper not to put signs up, have the presumptive state speed limit, and write state tickets. You know, unless you're gonna write a lot of tickets, it's not always an economical game.
You gotta imagine that there's gotta be some level of, some consequence to someone that is breaking an ordinance. There's gotta be some sort of deterrent, otherwise it would be chaos, anarchy. Anybody could just.
I can say that until I send you a bill, and then people will say something different, you know?
What's this again?
Yeah, you know, so, but yeah, you can set up an ordinance violations bureau. You have to designate which one of your ordinances, you know, can be paid through the ordinance violations bureau. And I actually think the city of Fort Wayne, I think their ordinance violations bureau setup is that if you pay it, if you don't show up at the ordinance violations bureau to pay it, it's another violation. So you get the violation for whatever you originally did, and then another one for not
paying
it to the ordinance violations bureau. So I just don't know how many tickets
Well,
you write.
we wouldn't write ordinances on moving violations. You know, we would wanna write for, like, you know, cause we have no stance right now with like junk vehicles, high weeds, stuff like that, which could come through here.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah, those are non-moving, so
Yes.
you could do those. You can also, those can also be enforced.
And parking,
That's something
we
we
can
should look
run
into.
through that.
That's correct.
Yes.
What about pets?
Yeah, animal violations could come through here. Anything
What
non.
we're working on.
Yeah, and you can even set up a pretrial diversion. I mean, have you ever heard of pretrial diversion where, you know, instead of it showing up on your record, you know, you do it a lot for moving traffic violations, but you can set up pretrial diversion. But again, it's possible to do, but it's more time consuming, because now I have to do that pretrial diversion agreement and track it and, you know, see if they went their 6 months on probation without re-violating, and it's just not worth the cost of it.
No, I'd be interested in setting up some, you know, ordinance
Or it comes in here, it's paid here.
yeah, for like the junk cars and the animal stuff and the.
But if they don't pay, you still then have to then move it to the next level,
Yeah.
which would be through the court system.
You could set it up in such a way though, like you said, if they don't pay it, then you tack on that extra. But that extra, you could have that fine set up where it would cover the cost to send it.
You could, I mean.
That way
you
if
could
you
have,
did have
you
to
could
send
have,
it.
things go to court system and half the people don't show up, or 90% of the people don't show up. But the problem is you still have to, they don't tell you ahead of time, hey, I'm not gonna show up at my
Yeah, then
court
you
hearing.
show up and
So-
pay for no one
So
to
you
be there.
still prepare and you know, so.
Hey, the animal, ordinance that we're doing, because it could potentially be a fine on the people, on a resident who breaks the ordinance, would that mean that the ordinance has to have a public hearing before it passes, or?
No, but it does have to be posted it has to be printed in the paper, since it has a penalty with it, yes.
Okay.
Before it can be enforced, it has to be that.
After
Now-
we pass it, then we print it in the paper?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Is there a certain amount, do you have to do it like like a month or how
I
long
think
does
it's
it?
got, the statute will say, but it's gotta be within 30 days of passage.
Okay.
But where that that's one of the things I have on my list to talk to you about, Mayor, is, you know, you and I talked about taking some things out.
Yeah.
And it becomes a very difficult ordinance to enforce.
Cause it's non-specific and
Yeah,
distance
I
and
mean,
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and because if it goes to court, you can't have an ordinance that says, you know, if you were trying, or, you know,
Yeah.
it's gotta be, you know, they were on a leash or they weren't on a leash. You know, it's not on their property or it's on their, and it's gotta be kind of a black and white. You can't,
Okay.
I think you have to pass one that is specific like that, and then if you want discretion, you have to leave it to your officer to exercise his discretion in whether he writes the ticket or not. But you can't have a kind of a waffly
Okay.
definition in the ordinance itself, because nobody would know whether they're violating it or
Yeah.
not, you know?
I get you, we were just trying to mitigate somebody, you know, us saying it was within 6 feet, or wasn't within 6 feet, and they said, no, I was 5.5 feet, you know?
Yeah, you know, or, you know, you get a freebie, or, you know, or
Yeah.
my dog ran away. I mean, you're gonna hear every story in the book, you know.
On a
and
leash on your property or not.
Yeah, it's either gotta be, you know, you set the facts, and
Yep.
it's either gotta be on a leash or not on a leash, or, you know, if it's off their property.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
I could finish that up, but that was one of the things I have on my discussion with a couple other things, you know, to talk about as to how you wanna
Okay.
do that. But I think if you're gonna, cause I hear you wanna put a little discretion in it, and I think your discretion should be at your, probably at your officer enforcing it.
Yep, and the only reason is because I, you know, full disclosure, when my daughter visits sometimes with her Siberian Husky, and that Siberian Husky has been known to once in a while get out, and we gotta go chase her down, and if we had a real strict, you know, then I'd be in violation, you know?
With Brad, he has discretion, he can't write you a ticket.
You know, but if you say, you know, it's an exception if your dog runs out, you know, jumps out of your house.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's gonna
Yeah.
say, well, my dog jumped out of my house,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly,
You
that's
know,
what I'm saying.
And you'll never be able to enforce it if it got to court. I can't enforce that.
Yeah.
So I think you just gotta make it black and white, strict, and then your marshal decides, you know, just like a speeding ticket. I mean, you may see people speeding, but he listens to their story and
Cowboy hat.
either gives them a warning or gives them a
Right,
ticket. you
right.
know, So,
Okay.
and address it that way.
So, did you want to talk tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be in the office.
Okay.
So,
All right. Sounds
just
good.
give it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but
Okay.
I'll be there all week.
Give you a call, and then I'll brief the council, and we'll go from there.
We'll go from there. All right?
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Have a good night.
So if you had that 5.5 foot question, instead of 6, it would be his discretion, and then it would be his word against the person made the violation.
He's saying make it on the leash or off the leash. And if Brad thinks it's 10 feet away, or it's, you know, not on a leash and they're not trying to get it, then he can do it. But if you put 5.5 feet in there, and they're gonna go, no, it was 5. Well, okay, did Brad have a tape measure? Then he has to prove it in court, saying yes, it was 6 feet away.
Yeah.
How are you gonna do that?
Yeah.
You know,
But yeah, his point. Well, see,
make it on the leash on the property
Yeah.
or off.
Yeah.
If it's off the property, it's got to be on a leash.
Don't have a distance. Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of, you know, we only have a few residents that we would probably write a ticket to for a violation. You know, this isn't gonna be an every day or every week that we're writing an animal. I think it's just, if we had something set up for a, what do you call it, a violation?
The bureau, yeah.
You know, now, we have, you know, we have something we can do about it, just like the junk cars. You know, we have an ordinance, but really we can't do anything about it. See what I'm saying? You know, we've talked about this. I feel like if we set up this bureau, you know, we'd probably only maybe write 10 tickets a year, maybe, if that.
But it wouldn't be a whole another bureau where we'd have another employee. I mean, it'd be Kim collecting the money.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm just saying, it's like, you know, if, I think what he's saying is like, let's say I write 100 tickets and 99 of them wanna go to court, well, then we're,
yeah.
you know, he's not charging us $12 an hour,
Right.
you know?
So the fine needs to be low enough to where they'll just say, oh, I'll just come in and pay it.
Yeah, a
Right.
$25.
But it needs to be high enough to make it worth it,
Well,
Just like the, you know, the
and
tall
not too high
grass.
to make them wanna go to court.
Yeah.
I think he said you make it 25 or 50 bucks. If it's paid here, but they don't show up for the hearing, they get a second fine, and that second fine, you make it 300 bucks, that way they cover the
Not
court costs.
paying the violation is a violation.
Yeah, and
That
then you
comes
cut,
with a
yeah,
fine.
then now they're paying that fine and $300.
Yeah.
So what do you say, some place was doing that?
Yeah. Just remember, fines are all at the discretion of the judge at the end of the day if it does go to court. They can say that's an excessive fine and knock it down to whatever they feel
Correct.
like.
Yep, and that's why I'm all about giving people chances
Yeah.
to pay things and,
Yeah, we're having something set
It's
up,
court cost,
otherwise,
you have to pay judge court costs.
yeah.
But yeah, I know, but they'll fight it, and the judge.
pay him 150 or 300 bucks to go to court for you for a $25 ticket, what's the point?
Correct.
Yeah. And thing would help too, you give a person a warning.
Yeah.
If they did it again, you write a ticket, then it's probably gonna hold up in court better. Than if you never warned them, hey, I already warned these guys, they did it again, they did it again.
Be set up that.
I think, I'd like to, move on to the next topic, if I think we're kind of beating this one. One thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to bring this up, we have the potential of having a nice, car show here in Woodburn, I'm not gonna be specific, but, we've talked about using the park, we've talked about maybe if Woodburn Missionary will let them use their lot for that. Does anybody have any ideas, or, you want us to just,
There's gonna be one at Westwood on the 28th, this Saturday, I think.
this Saturday?
Next Saturday.
So next Saturday, the 28th, okay.
I'm talking about a major car show that's always been in the region, it's not gonna be there anymore, and they asked me if Woodburn would entertain the idea, I said we'd be more than happy to be the host for it, I'm not gonna mention who. So,
Has it been absent for a few years?
yes,
Okay.
yes. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Alright. So, just try and find the best spot for it, I guess, nobody has any ideas?
I think Woodburn Missionary would be open to it.
Woodburn Missionary? Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
When do you think that would be?
I don't know, I'm talking with the guy on Tuesday.
Okay, let me know.
Okay. Alright.
If
John,
not,
did you have anything else? No. Terry? Dean?
No, not really. I know cold storage out there is starting to put up beams now. So, they're going along.
So, you know, there's the thought of, increased traffic out there, I think that's something we probably need to start, pushing, NDOT and the county, for improvements out there, cause that's not inside the city.
Somebody told me when that building gets up, it's gonna be 750 semis a day.
A day?
Yeah, a day. That's what I heard too.
I-
That's a lot of trucks.
Better have a Jake break law, right?
So,
I don't
something
know.
we need to address in the future.
Yeah, there's
then.
something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because like they're saying, lower the speed limit, those trucks are gonna slow all the traffic down coming out. You know darn well they aren't gonna wait until everything's clear, they're gonna pull out, so, yeah, you have to do something about that.
Dan? Were you still on idea? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you were still. When I asked John, I heard you were still talking, so
No,
I
it's,
apologize.
no, it's okay. No, I don't have anything right now. No.
Okay.
Likewise, they're supposed to start
Oh,
Monday.
thank you.
Well,
Okay, so.
yeah, we can touch on LifeWise real quick. We had a
Okay.
nice meeting with them
Yes, we did.
last week, nailed down just about the last of the contract language. I owe Kevin an answer on that email.
Thank you, cause I haven't even opened up the email yet.
Yeah, it's just a couple points of clarification.
Okay. Thank you for taking that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and knock that one out. That was
Appreciate that.
Friday's email. They are anxiously awaiting this so they can pull their permits, and they're down to a couple different buildings that they're trying to work out. They had originally hoped for the beginning of September, but they quickly realized that was a little ambitious, and so we're just gonna see how things play out, and once it becomes a reality, it'll be a reality, so.
Cool.
Awesome. Ryan just reminded me, he got the dimensions of the, Allen County bicentennial, sign that they're wanting to put in the city. So we have dimensions to build a concrete pad. The last thought we had was put it on the old Legion property. My thoughts are, if we do that, let's leave a little bit of space so we can put a couple lights to shine on it.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my question, is it gonna require any utility?
Right now, the two locations I've marked up there are behind the street light, so like the front of it you'll be able to see the front of it with the street light. But maybe it'd be wise to, even if we got the simple lights that were solar lights and
Yeah,
shined it
it
up.
seems to me
Sign.
illuminating it with direct lights, I think would be better.
Oh, 100% agree,
Yeah.
because understand that the light's gonna be behind you, so you're gonna be blocking it out all the time, but.
Um,
And it's near our current electric supply to our street lights, so.
And they told you the sign weighs 90 pounds?
Yeah, 90 pounds also,
So-
all bigger the structure really.
Even how big it is, they told you it weighs 90 pounds, so if we needed to relocate it, it'd be fairly simple. It'd be, it'd be costly breaking up the concrete and moving that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I just need to know what location you wanted, because I think by the end of October, I do believe they're bringing the sign out for the presentation, so I kinda need to know where it needs to go.
Yep.
Where you want me to put it at,
Yep.
up there to, yeah, 'cause
And-
it's gonna be here before we know it.
One last thing, if we wanna sell the property, do we wanna plan on taking it out to sell the property with that sign not there and put the sign somewhere else, or, do we wanna leave the sign there?
Will that screw up the property enough to, as far as frontage or just getting in and access?
I'd have to look at it first. I mean, when I saw pictures of the mural, I didn't like it, and then when it was put on the building, I love it now, so it's like.
Well, if we keep it kinda on the easterly side of that sign, it doesn't affect your approach nearly as much as going on the west side of that light pole. So, if we do find somebody that's interested in purchasing the property and they don't want it there, then we can have a conversation about removing it. However, if they're okay with it remaining on the site, that's fantastic, but on the east side of that lamp, it doesn't affect the entry to the property nearly as much as it would on the west, so.
On the east side, you could just kinda carve it out, that little section out of the property you're gonna sell it.
Yeah.
It'd
far as
be
our
left there, yeah.
right away
Yeah, it used to be
property.
our right away for it, but, yeah. Just,
Yeah.
I just need to know where you guys want it at, and we'll get something done and poured there, so.
Okay, so, yeah.
So take a look at it up there. I said, there's two, it was marked on the ground up there. I would say the east side's the better option, but, you know, it's tucked away a little bit closer to the light poles, the old street phone poles and stuff. It's tucked there a little bit more. The other side is out in the open. But keep in mind, it is a 7-foot by 7-foot structure, so it's not a small structure. It's 7 foot by 7 foot. So.
Since you're out at noon tomorrow, you wanna maybe meet me up there at 9:30? We'll just
Sure.
look it over?
Yeah.
Okay. That'll work.
I'll be on vacation starting at noon tomorrow, so I'll be gone all the way till next Tuesday.
Call you too.
Give him a little bit, give him a little bit. Let him get nice and settled in, get a drink, and then give him.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You second it?
Yeah.
All right.
It'll be coming in.